The year is 1863, and the world is bleeding into the dawn. The sound of hooves pounding against the earth creates a rhythmic, desperate thunder that tears through the silence of the countryside. Mud splatters in violent arcs as a team of horses, their eyes wide with animal panic, tears down a dirt road that has been churned into a quagmire by the night's storm. At the reins sits Judson Sherman, a man in his early 20s whose face is etched with a terror far older than his years. Beside him rides a ranch hand, equally young but pale as a sheet, holding on for dear life as the wagon careens toward a destination that looms in the distance like a judgment. It is a 2-story farmhouse, English in style, imposing and stoic, surrounded by the skeletal embrace of maple and hickory trees that tower over the roofline, their branches scratching at the gray sky. Dull, sickly yellow light stabs out from the windows, piercing the gloom, while thick smoke plumes from the chimney, snatched away by the wind. Lightning cracks across a sky that looks like a bruise, violet and black, just as the first hint of a blood-red sunrise begins to break the horizon. Judson pulls a gold pocket watch from his vest, his hands trembling so violently he nearly drops it. The dial reads 5:15. He snaps it shut, the metallic click lost under the roar of the wind, but then he hears it. It is a sound that freezes the marrow in his bones, a baby wailing. But this is not the cry of hunger or the fussing of fatigue. This is a swelling eruption of excruciating, unnatural pain, a sound that no infant should ever be capable of making. Judson cracks the reins, screaming at the horses. They rear, frothing at the mouth, then bolt forward as if shot from a cannon, kicking up a wall of mud as they thunder toward the house. The wails grow louder, piercing the air, vibrations of pure agony that seem to make the very air vibrate. Judson drives the team right up to the front porch, reining back so hard the leather creaks and the horses slide to a halt. He leaps from the wagon before the wheels have even stopped turning, his boots hitting the wood of the porch with a hollow thud. And then, just as his hand touches the cold iron of the door handle, the wailing stops. It is an abrupt, surgical silence that is infinitely worse than the screaming. He whips the door open, and a large gray cat scrambles past his legs, fleeing into the dawn as if escaping the mouth of hell. Judson stumbles into the foyer, his breath catching in his throat. His attention is immediately, magnetically drawn to the living room on his right. The fireplace is roaring, the flames dancing wickedly, casting long, jumping shadows against the walls. He stares into the room, his mind struggling to process the visual information, his brain rejecting the horror before him. The wood crackles and pops, the only sound in a house that should be filled with life. Tears well in his eyes, blurring the firelight as he moves slowly, trance-like, deeper into the room. It feels as if time has thickened, slowing down to a crawl. The heat from the fire hits his face, drying the sweat on his brow, the orange glow illuminating his horrified expression. He stops before the hearth and looks down at his feet. There, lying on the polished wood floor in a spreading puddle of crimson blood, is a pair of long, narrow knitting needles. The horror of the implication destroys him. He is emotionally devastated, his knees weakening, but then his peripheral vision catches movement. Something outside, something fast. Rage, hot and blinding, replaces the grief. He pivots on his heel and dashes back out the front door. He leaps off the porch, bypassing the ranch hand who is struggling to calm the spooked horses, and sprints around the side of the house. There, he sees her. A woman in a long gray dress, her feet bare and caked with mud, her lengthy jet-black hair streaming behind her like a shroud. She is dashing into the barn, the heavy door slamming shut behind her. Judson reaches the barn seconds later, his breath tearing at his lungs. He grabs the handle and pulls, but it won't budge. He pulls again, viciously, testing the lock and hinges, screaming in frustration. Finally, he throws his shoulder into the wood, the timber splintering as he breaks the lock. He races into the cavernous darkness of the barn. He stops, listens. It is cave dark in here, the dawn light only penetrating the first few feet of dust-moated air. He takes a step forward, squinting into the abyss, and just as he moves deeper, the back end of a thick shovel swings out of the inky blackness. There is a sickening crunch as wood meets bone, and Judson's world smash cuts to black. Decades dissolve like mist, and the timeline shifts. It is 1972. The world has changed, but the house remains. A wood-paneled station wagon, the quintessential vessel of the American family, crunches down the gravel driveway. It wears New Jersey plates, a long way from home. The farmhouse stands waiting, 100 yards back. The trees have grown thicker, their roots deeper, and the house itself has been well cared for, though it retains an imposing, watchful air. The car comes to a halt, the engine ticking as it cools. Roger Perron emerges from the driver's side, a lean man in his early 30s, full of optimism and the heavy responsibility of a father providing a new beginning. His wife, Carolyn, steps out beside him, simply dressed, her hair pulled up, radiating a gentle warmth. From the back, their two girls, Andrea, 7 years old and full of energy, and Cindy, 15 and drowning in the angst of adolescence, hop out. Their black lab, Sadie, follows. Everyone is buzzing with the excitement of arrival, except for Cindy. She surveys the rural isolation with the disdain only a teenager can muster, remarking that they are in the middle of nowhere and that the place looks incredibly boring. Roger, undeterred, asks Carolyn if she hears that. She listens to the wind and the rustling leaves and says she hears nothing. Roger smiles, a slow, satisfied grin, and tells her that is exactly the point. Carolyn looks over to the open space between the house and the barn, her eyes already planting seeds in the soil of her imagination, deciding instantly where her garden will go. They move to the porch, Andrea darting ahead to claim her territory, shouting about getting first dibs on the rooms. Cindy, trailing behind, asks with a bite of sarcasm if she gets a choice in her room, or if that, too, has been decided for her. Roger and Carolyn exchange a look, the amused, weary glance of parents who know this phase well. Carolyn kisses Roger, a quick, affectionate gesture, and enters the house. Roger turns back to the car, but notices Sadie. The dog is standing several feet back, staring through the open front door. There is a deep, primal intensity in her dark eyes, her body rigid, trembling slightly. Roger calls to her, confused, but Sadie takes a reserved step backward, refusing to cross the threshold. She stares into the gloom of the foyer, as if a predator is waiting just inside. Roger, dismissing it as canine stubbornness, calls her a dumb dog and leaves her be. The day dissolves into the chaotic ballet of moving. The foyer becomes a hive of activity. Boxes are stacked everywhere. Two burly movers maneuver a heavy wooden gun case through the door, directed by Roger to the living room. Another mover carries a heavy box, and Roger instructs him to take it to the cellar, pointing to the last door at the end of the hall. The man descends into the darkness, the heavy footsteps echoing on the wooden stairs. Later that night, the house begins to settle around them. In the kitchen, Carolyn stands at the counter, unpacking knickknacks. The glass cabinets are open, already filled with dishes. She peels the packing paper off a curious object. 3 wax monkeys on a wooden stand, depicted in the classic poses of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. She places them on the window ledge over the sink. Andrea wanders in, holding a handmade bird feeder that is crude but filled with love. She asks to hang it up, and Carolyn directs her to a hook on the back porch. Andrea steps out into the night. The bugs are swarming the porch light, and a low mist hangs above the ground like a bad dream. She finds the hook and stretches up on her tiptoes to hang the feeder. Suddenly, a hiss of a voice calls her name from the darkness. Andrea. It is a whisper, sharp and cold. She turns slowly, scanning the blackness, confusingly asking hello. There is no answer. Just as she turns back, she spots a large, mangy gray cat passing by the bottom step. It looks oddly similar to the cat from 1863. She calls to it, intrigued, but the cat rounds the corner of the house. Andrea follows, rounding the corner, but the yard is empty. There is no cat, no rustle of bushes. Just empty, silent space. Inside, Roger and Carolyn share a tender moment in the kitchen. He hugs her from behind, exhaustion and affection mingling in his voice. They talk about grabbing a pizza, the reality of the work ahead settling in, but Roger reassures her that it will be great. Upstairs, in the master bedroom, Carolyn hangs clothes in the closet. The sudden creak of wood draws her eyes to the ceiling. It sounds like footsteps, slow and deliberate, directly above her head. Then, silence. Unnerved, she moves to the window and looks out. She sees Sadie down in the yard, pacing nervously, still refusing to come near the house. Roger enters, tired from the move, and mentions he can't get the dog inside. Carolyn worries, but Roger decides to tether her for the night, hoping the cold will change her mind. Carolyn asks if he was on the roof, mentioning the footsteps. Roger dismisses it as the sounds of an old house settling. The lights flicker ominously, and Roger sighs, heading out to secure the dog. Later, in the dead of night, Carolyn wakes to a sound that chills her blood, the distant screams of what sounds like hundreds of children. She rushes to the back porch, where the sound is louder, coming from the woods. Roger startles her, appearing behind her. He laughs it off, explaining that it is tree frogs, mating calls that sound like screams. They embrace, Roger teasing her about being a city girl, but as they head inside, Carolyn looks back one last time. The woods are dark, and the frogs have stopped, replaced by a silence that feels heavy and watching. By morning, the house is bright, but the unease remains. Cindy complains about the plumbing and a smell of death in her room that comes and goes. As Carolyn passes the grandfather clock at the base of the stairs, she notices it has stopped at 5:15 a.m. She resets it. In the kitchen, she goes to fill the kettle and freezes. The 3 wax monkeys on the window ledge have moved. They are no longer in a row. They are facing each other, their wax heads melted together into a singular, deformed creature. The small clock next to them has also stopped at 5:15. Andrea runs in, asking for Sadie. Carolyn tells her to check out front. Andrea dashes out, Roger dodging her. Carolyn shows Roger the monkeys, spooked, but he dismisses it. Outside, Andrea finds the iron post and the chain. She calls for Sadie. There is no movement. She descends the steps, clapping her hands. Nothing. She rounds the bush at the bottom of the stairs and screams. Sadie lies dead, the heavy chain wrapped tightly around her body like a constrictor snake, her tongue protruding, her eyes dull and white. The horror of the discovery shatters the morning. We fade to black, and a new voice emerges. Ed Warren. He speaks of fear, defining it as agitation caused by danger. He is in a lecture hall with his wife, Lorraine. They are showing footage of a possessed man, Morris, a French-Canadian farmer. The grainy film shows Morris bleeding from the eyes, upside-down crosses appearing under his skin. It explains that evil found a home in Morris because he was conflicted. The lights come up, and they take questions. A student asks what scares them. Ed jokes that being married to a clairvoyant scares him the most because he can get away with anything. But the mood shifts when a girl in the front row asks about waking up feeling like someone is laying next to her. Lorraine, gentle and empathetic, takes the girl's hands. She senses the presence of the girl's deceased grandmother, offering comfort and closure. It is a demonstration of their power compassionate, real, and grounded in faith. Outside, they meet their assistant Jerome, a tech-savvy skeptic with a van that screams counterculture. Ed and Lorraine are a team, grounded in love and purpose, a stark contrast to the darkness encroaching on the Perron family. Back at the farmhouse, reality is fraying. The septic tank is broken, a massive expense they cannot afford. Roger is stressed, revealing to Carolyn that he might be laid off. The financial noose tightens around them, trapping them in the house. Time passes, and the seasons turn. The garden flourishes unnaturally fast. One night, Andrea sees the gray cat again in her room. It jumps onto her bed, staring at her. She follows it into Cindy's room, where the blacklight posters glow with an eerie luminescence. She hears hissing from under the bed. Looking underneath, she sees the cat, its eyes wild, demonically reflecting the blacklight, staring at something behind her. She looks back, nothing. The cat bolts into the closet. Carolyn arrives, turning on the lights, but the closet is empty. They are alone, yet the house feels crowded. Later, Carolyn wakes to a scratching sound. It starts distant, then moves to the cellar door. Deep, vicious scratches, like iron claws on wood. She investigates, finding the door vibrating. The scratching stops instantly when she approaches. She grabs a flashlight and peers under the door gap. The light reflects off two eyes boring back at her from the darkness eyes that are neither human nor animal. She scrambles back, jamming a rubber wedge under the door. Roger returns late, exhausted. He investigates the cellar, gun in hand, but finds nothing but dust and boxes. He tries to rationalize it, dismissing Carolyn's fear as stress, but the tension between them is a palpable wedge, exactly what the entity desires. The Warrens continue their work, debunking a haunting in an attic that turns out to be drafts and creaky floorboards. They return home to their daughter, Judy, and Ed's mother. It is a scene of domestic normalcy, a sanctuary they fight to protect. But the Perron house is descending into hell. Winter approaches. The garden dies. The scarecrow stands like a crucified warning. Roger takes a long-haul trucking job to pay the bills, leaving Carolyn and the girls alone. The isolation is complete. That night, Andrea is awakened by the cat again. It hisses, backing away as two phantom hands with only 3 fingers press out from within her pillowcase, folding the pillow around her face, trying to smother her. Her scream wakes the house. Roger and Carolyn rush in, but the entity is gone. The girls are terrified. Carolyn pleads with Roger to get a priest, but he refuses, angry and scared, denying the reality of what is happening. He leaves for his trip, and the house strikes. Carolyn is alone. The clocks stop at 5:15. She hears banging in the kitchen. She investigates, finding nothing, but the psychological assault is relentless. Cindy, doing homework, hears banging on her door. It opens on its own. She walks into the hallway and smells a foul stench like rotting meat. In her parents' bedroom, she sees it. An apparition of a woman, skin white as rot, hair matted, hunched over the sleeping Carolyn and Andrea. The spirit turns to Cindy, eyes devoid of pupils, and surges through her, vanishing. Cindy screams, and the terror is absolute. Carolyn finally seeks help. She approaches Father Thornton at the local church. He contacts the Warrens. Ed and Lorraine arrive at the farmhouse. The atmosphere is heavy, the air charged with static malice. They meet the family. The girls are withdrawn, the mother exhausted. Lorraine, with her gift, immediately senses the darkness. She touches the girls, feeling their fear. Ed notices the ropes on the door handles to stop the banging. He explains that the knocking in threes is an insult to the Trinity. They learn about Sadie's death, the birds breaking their necks against the barn, the cold spots. Lorraine enters the cellar. As she descends, she is bombarded with psychic visions, dead rabbits, blood flowing like water, a pentagram, a cloaked figure copulating with a corpse, a woman shooting herself. The house is a vessel of tragedy. Lorraine reveals to Ed that the spirit is Bathsheba Sherman, a witch who sacrificed her baby to Satan in 1863 and hung herself at 5:15 a.m. She is the source. The investigation begins. Ed and Lorraine bring in their team. Drew, Bruce in the script, the cop, and Jerome, the tech guy. They set up cameras, thermal monitors, and microphones. They turn the house into a laboratory of the paranormal. Roger returns, skeptical but desperate. He watches as they place crosses around the house, a spiritual provocation. The activity escalates. Doors slam. The temperature plummets. In the cellar, Ed challenges the spirit, demanding a sign. The door slams shut in his face. Later, in the kitchen, Bruce witnesses a milk carton move and smash on its own, only to reset itself. The fabric of reality is bending. The breakthrough comes at night. The cameras flash wildly in the hallway. The temperature drops so fast their breath freezes. Cindy wakes to see the beast again. The closet door rattles, the sound of a slide bolt locking from the inside. They pry open the wall, discovering a hidden room, a crawl space covered in cobwebs. Lorraine crawls in. She finds toys and the walls covered in childish scrawl. "I'm sorry, Mommy." She sees the spirits of the children Bathsheba killed. Then she sees Bathsheba's dirty feet standing behind her. She is shoved, the aggression physical and violent. They develop the photos. They see the boy on the stairs. They see Bathsheba standing over him. The evidence is irrefutable. But the entity fights back. It attacks Andrea, grabbing her hair and dragging her violently across the floor. It is a brutal, chaotic assault. Bruce and Ed struggle to hold her, but the force is superhuman. Lorraine ends it by slicing Andrea's hair with scissors. The violence leaves them shaken. Roger orders them out, terrified for his daughters, but the Warrens know they cannot leave. The church refuses an exorcism without more proof, citing bureaucracy. Lorraine is compromised. She sees a vision of her own daughter, Judy, dead in the water. It is a threat, a warning. She calls home, panicking, but Judy is safe for now. The terror follows them home. A doll, the Slinky from the Perron house, appears in the Warrens' chicken coop. Judy is lured inside. The door locks. The chickens are slaughtered. Lorraine arrives just in time to save her, but the message is clear. The witch can reach them anywhere. The Warrens are pushed to the brink. Ed wants to quit to save his family, but Lorraine refuses. She knows that if they walk away, the Perrons will die. They discover Bathsheba's goal. She possesses the mothers to kill the children. She has done it for generations. She is doing it to Carolyn. The climax explodes with the force of a hurricane. Carolyn, now fully possessed, her mind submerged under the witch's will, kidnaps her daughters. She takes them back to the house. Roger and the Warrens race against time, speeding through the night. They arrive to find the house a fortress of evil. Carolyn has dragged the girls to the cellar, but the spirits drive them out. She drags them to the bedroom, the site of the original sacrifice. She intends to kill Andrea and Cindy. Ed and Lorraine burst in. Roger confronts his wife, who is no longer his wife. Her face is contorted, her voice a guttural growl. She holds scissors or knitting needles, ready to strike. Ed realizes there is no time for a priest. He must perform the exorcism himself. He is not ordained, but he has faith. He binds Carolyn. The room erupts. Furniture flies. The walls crack. The wind howls inside the room. Carolyn levitates, her body arching in impossible angles, the bones creaking. Ed commands the demon to leave in the name of God. Lorraine uses her connection, appealing to the mother buried deep inside the monster. She reminds Carolyn of a memory, a moment of love with her family. It is a battle of wills, love versus hate, memory versus oblivion. Carolyn struggles. The witch screams, a sound of pure hatred. But the love is stronger. Carolyn vomits the darkness, the black bile of possession leaving her body. She collapses. The wind dies. The house falls silent. Carolyn wakes, weak and broken, but herself. She holds her children, weeping. The sun rises on a family that has survived hell. The Warrens leave, battered but victorious. They place the music box in their artifact room, a trophy of a war that never ends. The screen fades to black, scrolling text revealing that the Perrons moved away. But the Warrens continued their work, the soldiers on the front line of the spiritual war. The haunting of Harrisville is over, but the Amityville horror awaits.